tonight. We descend into the fractured heart of the lands between, into a world where gods bled, where brothers turned against brothers, and where every throne was built upon the bones of those who dared to claim it. Tonight, we speak of the demigods and their tragic fates. They say that before the shattering, the lands between knew an age of gold, an age where the Ere Tree stood radiant against the sky, its light blessing all who dwelt beneath its boughs. Queen Marika the Eternal ruled from her throne within the great tree, vessel of the Elden Ring itself, bound to the greater will through covenant and power. Her children, born of divine blood, were destined to shape the world according to their mother's design. But destiny is a fickle thing in the lands between, and godhood carries a terrible weight. The demigods were not mere princes and princesses playing at court. They were weapons forged in divine fire, each one bearing a fragment of their mother's power, each one carrying the potential to ascend to true godhood themselves. Some were Empyreans, chosen by the mysterious Two Fingers as candidates to succeed Queen Marika herself. Others were simply demigods by birthright, elevated through the blood that flowed in their veins, through the unions between goddess and consort, between divine will and mortal ambition. Queen Marika the Eternal first took as her consort Godfrey, the mighty warrior who would become the first Elden Lord. Together, they forged an empire. Godfrey led his armies across the lands between, crushing the giants of the frozen north, driving back the storm of war until at last peace settled upon the realm like snow falling on a battlefield. Their union produced the golden lineage, children born beneath the Ere Tree's light, heirs to a throne that seemed eternal. Among these first children was Godwyn the Golden, firstborn son, beloved of all who knew him. He embodied everything the Golden Order represented: strength, valor, grace made manifest. He was the hero of the ancient dragon war, the warrior who befriended the mightiest beasts of the old world and brought peace where there had been only flame and fury. But there were others born of this union, hidden from the light. Morgoth and Morg, twin brothers marked by the curse of the omen. Born with twisted horns and bestial features, they were deemed unfit for the Golden Order's perfection. Despite their royal blood, despite being sons of the goddess herself, they were cast into darkness, imprisoned beneath Leyndell in the subterranean shunning grounds, where the graceless and the cursed were left to rot in shame. Time passed. Godfrey served his purpose, and when the battles were won, when no more enemies remained for him to conquer, Queen Marika stripped him of his grace. The first Elden Lord became the first tarnished, exiled from the lands, between along with his warriors, cast out into the darkness beyond the light of the Ere Tree. It was a betrayal as cold as winter's deepest night. In his place, Marika took a new consort, but this was no ordinary union, no simple political marriage, for Radagon of the Golden Order was no mere champion. In truth, Radagon is Marika, a single divine being split into two forms, male and female aspects of the same god. Before becoming Elden Lord, Radagon had been a warrior in service to the Golden Order, sent to wage war against the Carian royal family and their academy of Raya Lucaria. But war turned to love. Radagon wed Queen Renala of the Full Moon, ruler of the academy, and through this union came 3 more demigods: General Radahn, who would grow to master the stars themselves; Praetor Rykard, who would become Justiciar of the Golden Order before falling into blasphemy; and Rani, the lunar princess, marked from birth as an Empyrean, chosen by the Two Fingers as a potential successor to Queen Marika. When Godfrey was cast out and Radagon was called to return to the Erdtree capital, he abandoned Renala without hesitation. She, who had laid down her sword for love, who had ended the war for him, was left behind, her heart shattered, her mind broken. Radagon became the second Elden Lord, and through Marika's divine authority, his children with Renala were elevated to the status of demigods. From the union of Marika and Radagon, 2 more children were born. But because their parents were one being split into 2 forms, these children were cursed from the moment they drew breath. Malenia was afflicted with the scarlet rot, a terrible plague that ate at her flesh, consuming her from within, causing her to lose limbs that had to be replaced with prosthetics of unalloyed gold. Her twin brother, Michaela, was cursed with eternal childhood, forever trapped in the body of a youth, unable to age, unable to grow into the godhood that seemed his birthright. Yet both were Empyreans, both were marked as potential successors to the throne. Despite their afflictions, despite the cruel fate that bound them from birth, they were among the most powerful beings in all the lands between. And then there was Mesmer, another child of Marika, born with a serpent, coiled within his very soul. The abyssal serpent threatened to consume him entirely until Marika herself placed a seal upon one of his eyes, binding the creature within. But Mesmer's curse was too great, too terrible to be allowed in the light of the Erdtree. He was sent away, exiled to the land of shadow beyond the veil, tasked with waging an endless crusade against those who did not follow the light of grace. These were the demigods, children of goddess and lord, bearers of divine blood, each one marked by fate in ways both glorious and terrible. They should have been the pillars upon which a golden age was built. They should have ruled in harmony, should have carried forward their mother's vision of perfection. But immortality breeds stagnation. Power breeds ambition. And in the hearts of even the most divine, darkness can take root. The first crack in the Golden Order came on a bitter winter's night. On that night, everything changed. On that night, death returned to the lands between. They call it the Night of Black Knives. It began with Rani, the lunar princess. She had been chosen as an Empyrean, granted her own shadow in the form of Bled, the half-wolf, marked as a potential vessel for the Elden Ring. But Rani looked upon the Golden Order and saw only chains. She saw a world controlled by the greater will, by the Two Fingers who claimed to speak for that distant god, by a system that allowed no true freedom, no genuine choice. She saw herself as a puppet dancing on strings held by powers beyond comprehension. And so, Rani plotted treason. She sought out Malekith, the Black Blade, her mother's own shadow, the guardian of the rune of death itself. Through cunning or through conspiracy, a fragment of that rune was stolen. That fragment, destined death, had been removed from the Elden Ring by Queen Marika herself, ensuring that the demigods would never truly die, that the Golden Order would reign eternal. But now, death had been unleashed. Rani took that stolen fragment and performed a fearsome rite, imbuing the daggers of the Black Knife assassins with the power of destined death. These assassins were all women, all Numen from the Eternal Cities, a race with ties to Queen Marika herself. Some whisper that Marika knew of the plot, that she sanctioned it or even orchestrated it herself. Others claim Rani acted alone, driven by her desire for freedom. On that winter night, the assassins struck. They infiltrated Lendl, the royal capital, and there they found their target. Godwyn the Golden, beloved firstborn, hero of the realm, was surrounded by the Black Knives. They held him down, their blades gleaming with stolen death, and they carved the curse mark into his flesh. Godwyn's soul died that night. His spirit was severed from his body, sent into darkness, into a death that should have been impossible. But at the exact same moment, atop the divine tower of Leonia, Ranni took her own life. She used the other half of the stolen rune to kill her own Empyrean flesh, freeing her soul from the Two Fingers' control. Because two demigods died simultaneously, the curse mark split into two half-wheels. Godwyn died in soul alone, his body remaining in the world, while Ranni's flesh perished but her spirit endured, transferred into a doll modelled after her mentor, the Snow Witch. Godwyn's body was given an Erd tree burial, interred in the deep-root depths at the base of the great tree's roots. But without a soul, without the completeness of true death, his corpse began to corrupt. It spread like a cancer through the root system of the Erd tree, mutating, growing, becoming something monstrous. Where once there had been a golden prince, now there was only the Prince of Death, a grotesque amalgamation of flesh and scale, of fungal growth and death's essence. From his corrupted remains came Deathroot, a curse that spread across the lands between. Those who died could not return to the Erd tree as intended. Instead, they rose as those who live in death, undead abominations trapped between life and death, worshipping Godwyn as a god of their new, cursed existence. Queen Marika, who had witnessed the murder of her beloved son, who had perhaps even orchestrated it herself in some twisted play for freedom, was driven to the brink. In her grief, in her rage, in her desperate madness, she did the unthinkable. She shattered the Elden Ring. With a hammer of her own making, Marika struck at the very source of the Golden Order's power, at the Elden Ring that had sustained the world for so long. The ring fractured into pieces, great runes that scattered among her children. And for this act of supreme blasphemy, the greater will punished her. Marika was imprisoned within the Erd tree itself, crucified upon a rune ark, bound forever with her other half, Radagon, who had tried desperately to repair what she had broken. The throne stood empty, the Elden Ring lay in shards, and the demigods, each now bearing a great rune, looked upon one another with eyes full of ambition and mistrust. The shattering had begun. Chapter 1. Godwyn the Golden. Death of the Firstborn. Before he became the Prince of Death, before his name became synonymous with corruption and horror, Godwyn was everything a demigod should be. Born of Godfrey and Marika, first of the Golden lineage, he embodied the ideals of the Golden Order in ways that his cursed brothers never could. Where Morgoth and Mohg were hidden in shame, Godwyn stood in the light, celebrated, beloved, perfection made flesh. His hair shone like spun gold. His armor gleamed with the radiance of the Erd tree itself. When he walked through Lendl, people whispered blessings, offered prayers in his name. He was the future of the Golden Order, their heir apparent, the prince who would one day ascend to become Elden Lord in his own right. But Godwyn's glory was not born of privilege alone. He earned his legend on the battlefield, in the age before the shattering, when the Golden Order was still expanding its dominion. War came with wings and flame. The ancient dragons, primordial beings of immense power, descended upon Lendl in a conflict that would become known as the War of the Dragons. These were not mere beasts. They were intelligent, terrible, wielders of lightning that could reduce armies to ash. The ancient dragon Gransax, massive beyond comprehension, attacked the capital itself. His body was so large that when he fell, his corpse would remain draped across the outer walls of Lindell for ages to come, a monument to that terrible war. Godwyn led the defense, and when the dragons seemed unstoppable, when lightning cracked the heavens and the city burned, Godwyn did something unprecedented. He challenged Fortisax, mightiest of the ancient dragons, in single combat. The battle raged across the skies and through the streets, a clash of divine power against primordial fury, and Godwyn won. But instead of claiming Fortisax's head as a trophy, instead of proving the Golden Order's superiority through domination, Godwyn offered friendship. He saw in the ancient dragons not enemies to be exterminated, but potential allies, beings of honor who deserved respect. Through his compassion, through his strength tempered with wisdom, Godwyn forged a peace that would endure for generations. Fortisax became his friend, bound to him by oaths of loyalty and respect. Other dragons followed, and the dragon cult was born, worshipping the power of lightning, incorporating ancient dragon communion into the very fabric of the Golden Order. It was Godwyn's greatest achievement, a peace won not through subjugation, but through understanding. This was the man the Black Knives murdered on that winter's night. The assassination was not a simple stabbing in the dark. The imagery we see in the game's opening suggests something far more deliberate, far more ritualistic. Multiple assassins surrounded Godwyn, restraining him, holding him in place while the cursed blades carved the mark of death into his flesh. He fought back, clearly. One of the Black Knife assassins, wounded grievously, was left behind in Limgrave, unable to escape with the others. Some say it was Godwyn himself who delivered that blow, even as death claimed him. When the rune of death pierced Godwyn's soul, something fundamental broke in the order of the world. This was the first true death of a demigod in all of history. The Golden Order's promise of immortality shattered with Godwyn's spirit, and because his death was incomplete, because Ranni had split the curse mark in two, Godwyn could not pass on completely. His body endured, locked in the pose of his death, held by invisible assassins. His corpse was laid to rest in the deep-root depths, but rest did not come. Without a soul, the body became something else. It grew, it mutated. Golden hair became pale and lifeless. Human features warped into something fish-like, basilisk-like, a grotesque parody of what he had been. His face transformed into a fungal disc, eyes clouded and blind, while his lower body developed a massive tail covered in scales. Death blight radiated from him, a miasma that attracted swarms of flies that corrupted everything it touched. And through the root system of the Erdtree, through those sacred channels that were meant to carry souls back to the great tree for rebirth, Godwyn's corruption spread. Deathroot appeared wherever the Erdtree's roots touched the world, in catacombs and dungeons, in hidden places where the dead were laid to rest. The curse took hold. Those who died could no longer return to the tree properly. They rose as undead, as those who live in death, neither truly alive nor truly dead, trapped in a liminal state that the Golden Order deemed heretical. A cult formed around Godwyn's corpse in the depths. They called him the Prince of Death, and they worshipped him as a god of a new order, one where death was not the end but a transformation. Fear, the deathbed companion, sought the two halves of the curse mark, hoping to reunite them and create a mending rune that would legitimize those who live in death, that would incorporate them into the Elden Ring itself. For this, she was hunted. For this, she delved into the deepest places, seeking Godwyn's corpse, lying with it in death's embrace, hoping to birth a new age where even the undead could find acceptance under the Erdtree's light. Godwyn's death accomplished what Ranni intended. It broke the Golden Order's claim to eternal rule. It proved that even gods could die, but it also unleashed something terrible into the world, a corruption that spread like disease, that turned what should have been a heroic end into an ongoing nightmare. His brother Miquella would later attempt to grant Godwyn a true death, to complete what the Black Knives had started. The eclipse that the warriors of Castle Sol prayed for, the ritual that never came to fruition, was meant to allow Godwyn's soul to pass on, to end his suffering and the suffering of all those trapped in his curse. But the eclipse never came. The prayers went unanswered, and Godwyn remains in the depths, massive and corrupt, a god of death in a world that was never meant to know death at all. His friend Fortisax still guards him, even now. The ancient dragon descended into the deep-root depths and has fought for ages against the death blight, trying to save the friend who once saved him, trying to cleanse the corruption that has consumed Godwyn's body. It is a losing battle. The death blight spreads faster than even an ancient dragon can contain. This is what became of the Golden Prince. This is the fate of the firstborn, the beloved, the hero who brought peace through compassion. His death was the catalyst for everything that followed: the shattering, the war, the endless suffering of the lands between. And somewhere in the darkness of the deep-root depths, his corpse continues to grow, continues to spread, a monument to the death that should never have been. Chapter 2. Morgoth and Mohg, the Omen twins. Not all children of gods are born blessed. Sometimes divinity births monsters, or perhaps more accurately, divinity births children that a society obsessed with perfection perceives as monstrous. Morgoth and Mohg, twin sons of Queen Marika and Godfrey the First Elden Lord, should have been princes of the golden lineage. They should have stood beside Godwyn in the light, celebrated and honored. Instead, they were born Omen, and in the eyes of the Golden Order, that made them less than nothing. The Omen are cursed from birth with features that mark them as different. Horns sprout from their flesh, twisted and gnarled. Some develop tails, wings, or other bestial traits. These features connect them to the primordial crucible, to the state of the world before the Erdtree's dominance, when all life was blended together in a chaotic amalgamation of forms. The Golden Order views this as impure, as a reversion to something base and primitive. For common Omen, the sentence is death. At birth, their horns are excised, a process that usually kills them. Those who survive the mutilation are marked for life, forever seen as cursed, as objects of revulsion and fear. But for Omen, born of royalty, of the goddess herself, the horns are left intact, not out of mercy, out of shame. Royal Omen are hidden away, imprisoned in the subterranean shunning grounds beneath Lendil, in the sewers where filth and refuse collect, where the graceless and the cursed are left to rot in darkness. Magic shackles bound the twins, ensuring they could never escape, never see the light of the Erdtree, They were denied by birth. Can you imagine it? Being born sons of the goddess, princes by birthright, and yet being treated as abominations. Knowing your brother Godwyn walks in glory above while you are chained in excrement below. Knowing your mother, the eternal queen herself, looked upon you and deemed you unworthy of her light. The twins reacted to their imprisonment in fundamentally different ways. Morgoth, despite everything, remained loyal. In the darkness of the sewers, as he grew to understand what he was, as he witnessed the other omen cursed and broken, he internalized the Golden Order's teachings. He believed he deserved his fate. He looked upon his own reflection and saw not a prince wrongly imprisoned, but a cursed creature mercifully spared from execution. He sealed his own accursed blood within a curved sword, hiding his nature behind a wooden staff, ashamed of the power that ran through his veins. When Queen Marika shattered the Elden Ring and was imprisoned within the Erd Tree, when the enchantment binding Morgoth broke and he was finally free, he did not burn Leyndell to the ground. He did not take revenge upon the order that had degraded him. Instead, he claimed a great rune and declared himself the protector of the Erd Tree and the capital. He became the Veiled Monarch, ruling from the shadows, never revealing his true face to the people of Leyndell, because even as their king, even as their protector, he knew they would never accept an omen upon the throne. He adopted the alias of Margit the Fell Omen, and during the shattering, he personally hunted down demigods and champions who sought to claim the Elden Ring. He defended the Erd Tree that had rejected him. He slew those who would be Elden Lord, including his own siblings, because he believed that only through the Golden Order's restoration could the lands between be saved. When General Radahn marched upon Leyndell, Morgoth met him in battle and triumphed, driving the mighty Star Scourge back. When Godric the Grafted tried to claim the capital, Morgoth humiliated him, sending him fleeing to Stormvale Castle in shame. One by one, Morgoth defended the city against all who would challenge it. But the Erd Tree would not accept him either. The Great Tree sealed itself, denying entry to Morgoth and to everyone else, leaving the throne empty, the Elden Ring forever out of reach. Morgoth had given everything to the Golden Order, had defended it with his life, had proven his worth 1,000 times over, and still he was denied. This is the tragedy of Morgoth. He suffered from a kind of spiritual Stockholm syndrome, unable to escape the belief that he was cursed, that he was unworthy, even as he proved himself the most worthy of all. He hated himself with a passion that consumed him, despised his omen blood, even as it gave him the strength to protect what he loved. When at last a Tarnished defeats him and claims his great rune, Morgoth transforms. The curse lifts. The omen features fade, and what remains is just an old man, weak and dying. In those final moments, he warns the Tarnished that the thorns sealing the Erd Tree will deny them too, just as they denied him. There is bitterness in his voice, but also acceptance. He has failed. The Golden Order he died to protect remains broken. And then his father returns. Godfrey, first Elden Lord, having been called back to the lands, between as one of the Tarnished, finds his son in those final moments. He kneels beside Morgoth, cradling the son he was forced to imprison, the son he perhaps never truly knew. Morgoth's body crumbles to golden dust in his father's arms. It is one of the most heartbreaking moments in all of Elden Ring. A reunion between father and son, but only in death. only when it is far too late for anything to be mended. Morg's path was the dark mirror of his brothers, where Morgoth internalized his shame and sought redemption through loyalty. Morg embraced his curse. He looked upon the omen blood within him and saw not weakness but power. He rejected the Golden Order entirely, rejected the goddess who imprisoned him, rejected the very notion that he should be ashamed of what he was. In the depths beneath Lendil, Morg made contact with something ancient and terrible, the Formless Mother, an outer god associated with blood and pain, heard his cries. This entity cared nothing for the Golden Order's ideals of perfection. It reveled in blood and violence, in wounds that would never heal, in the beautiful suffering that connects all living things. The Formless Mother blessed Morg's accursed blood with fire, transforming it into blood flame, a power that could burn and bleed simultaneously. Through this dark communion, Morg developed an entire school of magic centered around blood. Incantations that could summon cursed blood, that could hemorrhage enemies from within, that could mark victims for sacrifice. When the Elden Ring shattered and the enchantments broke, Morg escaped the shunning grounds and claimed a great rune for himself. But unlike his brother, he had no interest in defending the Golden Order or reclaiming his place within it. Instead, he founded his own dynasty, the Morgwyn dynasty, built upon blood and ambition. Deep underground, in a hidden realm accessible only through the most secret of pathways, Morg constructed his palace, Morgwyn Palace, a grotesque monument to his vision, soaked in blood, decorated with the corpses of those sacrificed to the Formless Mother. He recruited followers, sanguine nobles who shared his bloody faith, and he sent out the Bloody Fingers, a group of tarnished hunters who would bring him victims. But Morg's ambitions went beyond simply building a dynasty. He understood that to truly overthrow the Golden Order, he needed power beyond his great rune, beyond even the blessing of the Formless Mother. He needed an Empyrean. So Morg kidnapped Miquella. The circumstances of this kidnapping would not be fully understood until much later, until the revelations of the shadow of the Erdtree. At first, it seemed that Morgay had simply stolen Miquella from the Hallitree while Melania was away fighting in Caelid, that he had dragged the cocoon containing the eternally young Empyrean to his palace with the intent of forcing Miquella into godhood so that Morg could rule as his consort. Morg bathed Miquella's cocoon in blood, performed dark rituals, had his followers render offerings of blood to try to awaken the sleeping god. But no matter how much blood was spilled, no matter how many prayers were offered, Miquella did not respond. The cocoon remained inert, and Miquella's withered arm hung limply from a crack in its surface. What Morg did not understand, what he could not have known, was that he was not the kidnapper, he was the victim. Miquella had charmed him, had used his supernatural ability to compel affection, to manipulate Morg into carrying him away from the Hallitree. Morg believed he was acting of his own will, believed he was crafting his own destiny, when in truth he was nothing more than a pawn in Miquella's grand design. This revelation cast Morg's entire story in a different light. He was not simply a monster who kidnapped a child god for his own perverse purposes. He was manipulated, his mind twisted by Miquella's charm, used as a vessel, and then discarded. Sir Ansbach, one of Morg's most loyal followers, attempted to free his lord from the enchantment, raising his blade against Miquella himself. For his trouble, Ansbach was also charmed, forced to serve the very being he had tried to defeat. In the end, Mog falls to the tarnished, his blood-soaked dreams of dynasty ending in his palace beneath the earth. But death is not the end for him. In the shadow of the Erd Tree, Miquella takes Mog's corpse and uses it as a vessel, crafting the soul of General Radan into it, creating promised consort Radan, a fusion of two demigods that Miquella uses to achieve his own ascension to godhood. Mog's body becomes nothing more than a tool, his identity erased, his ambitions forgotten. Even in death, even after everything, he is used and discarded. The tragedy is that Mog spent his entire existence trying to escape being someone else's puppet, trying to forge his own path free from the Golden Order's control, only to become a puppet in an even more elaborate scheme. The Omen twins represent two responses to trauma, two ways of dealing with rejection and abuse. Morgoth sought validation from his abusers, convinced that if he just proved himself enough, if he just sacrificed enough, he would finally be accepted. Mog rejected his abusers entirely, embracing the very thing they hated about him, finding power in what they called curse. Neither path led to happiness, neither path led to freedom. Both twins died as they had lived, defined by the curse that marked them from birth, forever trapped by a society that could not see past their horns to the princes beneath. And perhaps that is the cruelest fate of all. Chapter 3. Radan and Rykard, the brothers of ambition, the children of Radagon and Renala, were not born into the golden lineage with its expectations of perfection, but into the Carian royal family, where the moon's cold light illuminated different paths to power. Radan and Rykard, brothers by blood, would both achieve greatness in their own ways, and both would ultimately be consumed by the very ambitions that made them legendary. General Radan, called the Star Scourge, was perhaps the mightiest warrior the lands between had ever seen. From childhood, he was massive, growing larger and larger with each passing year, his body seemingly unable to contain the power that surged within him. With size came strength, and with strength came the dreams of a boy who idolized heroes. Despite being Radagon's son, despite his red hair marking him as heir to the Golden Order's champion, Radan looked not to his father for inspiration, but to Godfrey, the first Elden Lord. He adorned his armor with lions, with symbols of Godfrey's spectral beast Sarosh, and he trained relentlessly to become a warrior worthy of that legacy. Where Radagon was a golden champion, calculating and devoted to the Order, Radan became something more primal, a force of nature wrapped in steel. But Radan's devotion was not limited to martial prowess alone. He studied in Celia, the town of sorcery in Caelid, learning magic to complement his physical might. Not delicate spells of illusion or transformation, but gravity sorcery, the magic of the Alabaster Lords, beings who arrived in the lands between on meteors, bringing with them the secrets of manipulating mass and force. Radan mastered gravity magic for a reason, both practical and heartbreaking. As he grew, he realized his beloved horse Leonard, a scrawny steed who had been with him since childhood, would soon be unable to bear his weight. Rather than abandon his loyal companion, rather than find a new mount worthy of his size, Radan learned to manipulate his own gravitational pull, lightening himself, so that Leonard could continue to carry him into battle. This act of devotion, this refusal to discard something precious simply because it had become inconvenient, reveals Radan's character more than any of his military victories. He could have demanded a massive war horse, could have ridden a dragon, or simply marched on foot. Instead, he bent the laws of reality itself so that his small horse could continue to serve. But Radan's mastery of gravity went far beyond this personal application. He challenged the stars themselves, using his magic to hold them in place, to freeze the cosmic order. The reasons for this are debated. Some say he did it to protect Celia from malformed stars like Estelle, the creatures that had destroyed other eternal cities. Others suggest he sought to freeze fate itself, to prevent the celestial movements that govern the destinies of Empyreans, like his sister Rani. Whatever his reasons, Radan conquered the stars. He held them suspended in the firmament through sheer force of will and magic. Even when he lost his mind to the scarlet rot, even when he was reduced to a mad beast wandering the dunes of Caelid, he maintained that cosmic grip. Only his death would finally free the stars to move again. During the shattering, Radan became one of the primary combatants. From his fortress of Redmane Castle, he commanded an army of fearless knights, warriors who loved their general and would follow him into any hell. He marched against the other demigods, attempting to take Lendl itself, though he was ultimately defeated and driven back by Morgoth. His greatest battle, the one that would seal his fate, came in Caelid. Malenia, Blade of Miquella, marched her clean-rot knights across the lands between to challenge the Star Scourge. The reasons for this battle were hidden at the time, but the shadow of the Erdtree would later reveal the truth. Malenia had been sent to kill Radan, to ensure his death so that Miquella could claim his soul for a dark purpose. The Battle of Aeonia raged for days. Two of the mightiest demigods clashed in a conflict that shook the very earth. Radan, massive and terrible, wielding dual colossal greatswords with the ease of a child swinging toy blades, fought with the fury of storms. Malenia, the undefeated swordswoman, danced through his attacks with supernatural grace, her prosthetic arm and leg not hindering her in the slightest. Neither could gain the advantage. Neither could land the decisive blow. The battle became a stalemate, a war of attrition between two beings who refused to fall. And so Malenia did the unthinkable. She unleashed the power she had been holding back her entire life, the scarlet rot that ate at her flesh, the curse that Miquella's unalloyed gold needles had barely contained, was released in full. A massive flower bloomed in Aeonia, the scarlet Aeonia, and from it poured corruption beyond measure. As the rot flower blossomed, as the very air turned poisonous and the ground became diseased, Malenia whispered in Radan's ear. She spoke words that would only be understood much later, revealed through the armor dropped by Radan's body. Miquella awaits thee, O promised consort. The scarlet rot consumed Caelid. The once verdant region became a hellscape of red corruption, of massive rot-infected beasts and pools of poison, of a land dying slowly and in agony. Malenia fell into a coma, her rot having bloomed beyond her ability to control it. She was carried back to the Haligtree by her knight Finlay, who bore her all the way from Caelid to the consecrated snowfield, a journey that should have been impossible. Radan did not die. The scarlet rot infected him, ate away at his mind, reduced him to a feral thing that wandered the wailing dunes. But it could not kill him. He retained just enough of his power to keep riding Leonard, just enough of his consciousness to keep holding the stars in place. But everything else, all his intelligence, all his nobility, all the honor that had made him legendary, was consumed by the rot. His soldiers, the Redmane Knights, remained loyal even then. Unable to bear seeing their general in such a state, they organized the Radan Festival, a gathering of champions from across the lands between, inviting warriors to face the Star Scourge and grant him an honorable death. Castellan Jeren, Radan's friend and second-in-command, presided over the festival, honoring the pact of honorable death they had sworn to one another. When the Tarnished finally defeats Radan, when the Star Scourge falls at last, the stars resume their motion. A massive meteor crashes into East Limgrave, opening the path to Nokron, the Eternal City. Radan's death frees fate itself, allowing events to proceed that had been frozen for ages. But death is not the end for Radan either. In the Land of Shadow, Miquella completes his plot. He uses Mohg's body as a vessel and grafts Radan's soul into it, resurrecting him as promised consort Radan, restoring him to his prime but binding him to Miquella's will. The vow Radan had apparently made in childhood, a promise to be Miquella's consort, is fulfilled through manipulation and dark magic, whether Radan truly wanted it or not. The Star Scourge, the mighty general who conquered the stars themselves, ends his story as another of Miquella's pawns, his will subverted, his body stolen, forced into a role he may never have genuinely desired. Rykard's path to damnation was more voluntary, but no less tragic. Like his brother, Rykard served the Golden Order in his youth. He was made praetor, a high-ranking official, and commanded a company of inquisitors. His duty was to root out heresy, to torture and execute those who defied the Golden Order's doctrine. The Iron Virgins, brutal automata that could both kill on the battlefield and kidnap victims for transport to Volcano Manor, were Rykard's creation. But somewhere in his service, Rykard became disillusioned. Perhaps it was the hypocrisy he witnessed, the way the Golden Order claimed perfection while committing atrocities. Perhaps it was his own ambition, a desire for power that the Order could never satisfy. Or perhaps it was simply exposure to too much darkness, too much cruelty, until he could no longer distinguish between justice and sadism. Rykard traveled to Mount Gelmir, an active volcano in the western Altus Plateau, and there he discovered something ancient. Beneath the mountain, in chambers filled with magma and darkness, he found relics of a forgotten religion, the serpent god Aigle, an immortal being that had been worshipped in the time before the Erdtree, still slumbered in the depths, demanding blood sacrifice, hungry after ages of dormancy. Rykard brought the hexes of that ancient serpent cult back into use. He established Volcano Manor as his base of operations, transforming it from a stately fortress into a nightmarish facility dedicated to feeding the serpent. He met Tanith, a dancer from a foreign land, and made her his consort. Together, they built a house of recusants, rebels who opposed the Golden Order and the Erdtree. When Ranni plotted the Night of Black Knives, Rykard supported her. On that fateful night, Ranni gave him the blasphemous claw, a slab of rock engraved with traces of the Rune of Death. This was to be Rykard's contingency, a weapon he could use to challenge Malekith, the Black Blade, if the plot was discovered, and the Guardian of Destined Death came for them. After the shattering, after Rykard claimed his great rune, his blasphemy reached its apex. The serpent whispered to him, promised him power and immortality if he would only give himself to it. Rykard, in his pursuit of a way to overthrow the gods themselves, agreed. He fed himself to Aegle, allowing the immortal serpent to devour him. But this was no simple death. Rykard merged with the serpent, his consciousness remaining, his face manifesting on the creature's neck. He became the god-devouring serpent, a massive abomination that resided in a chamber filled with lava and the corpses of those who had been sacrificed to it. His followers, horrified by what their lord had become, turned against him. They sought the serpent hunter, an ancient spear designed specifically to kill Aegle, but none could defeat the monster Rykard had become. Volcano Manor became a factory of death. Tanith recruited Tarnished from across the lands between, sending them on assassination contracts, having them kill specific targets. Those who completed these missions were granted an audience with Rykard, and in that audience, the serpent devoured them, absorbing their strength, incorporating their souls into his ever-growing mass. Rykard's blasphemous blade, a sword he pulls from the serpent's throat, is covered in the writhing souls of those he has consumed. Each victim adds to his power. Each sacrifice brings him closer to his goal of growing strong, enough to devour the gods themselves, to consume the Erd Tree and the Greater Will, to end the cosmic order through simple, terrible gluttony. When the Tarnished finally confronts Rykard, the demigod is nearly mad with hunger and ambition. "Join the Serpent King as family," he proclaims. "Together, we will devour the very gods." There is grandeur in his madness, a terrible vision of ending tyranny through consumption, of achieving freedom by eating everything that chains you. But the serpent hunter proves his undoing. The ancient spear, designed ages ago for this exact purpose, cuts through serpentine flesh and blasphemous power alike. Rykard falls, and as he dies, he whispers, "A serpent never dies." He is right. After his death, his body begins to regenerate. Tanith remains in his chamber, attempting to consume his corpse, hoping that he might live on within her. The serpent's immortality ensures that Rykard's story is not truly over, that somewhere in that lava-filled chamber he slowly reforms, waiting for the day he might rise again. Radan and Rykard, brothers who should have stood together, instead pursued their own paths to glory and damnation. One conquered the stars and was consumed by rot. The other conquered death and was consumed by blasphemy. Both achieved immortality of a sort. Neither found peace. They are monuments to ambition unbound, to the dangers of seeking power without wisdom, to the price of trying to overthrow gods. And in the end, both were merely pieces on a board controlled by others, players in games they thought they were winning. Chapter 4. Rani the Witch, the architect of freedom. Of all the demigods, none shaped the fate of the lands between more profoundly than Rani the Witch. Where others fought for thrones and great runes, where they struggled to claim the power their mother had shattered, Rani sought something different, something more dangerous. She sought freedom from the gods entirely. Rani was born Lunar Princess Rani, daughter of Radagon and Renala, third child of that union after Radan and Rykard. From birth, she was different. While her brothers pursued martial glory, Rani inherited her mother's gift for sorcery, studying the cold, dark magics of the moon that hung above Raya Lucaria. She became Renala's apprentice, learning the secrets of glintstone sorcery, of lunar magic that drew upon celestial powers distinct from the golden light of the Erd Tree. But Rani was also an Empyrean, one of the few demigods chosen by the Two Fingers as a potential successor to Queen Marika. This designation came with both privilege and chains. she was granted Bled the Half-Wolf as her shadow, a guardian bound to her by the two fingers, designed to protect her and serve her until she ascended to godhood. She was marked for divinity, selected to potentially bear the Elden Ring and become the vessel for the greater will's designs. And Ranni looked upon this destiny and rejected it utterly. She studied beneath another mentor as well, one whose identity was hidden, who taught her a different kind of magic. The Snow Witch, an elderly woman versed in cold sorceries, imparted to Ranni knowledge of ice and darkness, of magics that drew not from the Erdtree's gold or the Academy's glintstone, but from the void itself, from the spaces between stars where the dark moon held sway. The dark moon became Ranni's sigil, her symbol of power and authority. Cold and leaden, it represented a future unbound by the warm light of the Erdtree, a world where the dark of space and the light of the moon would guide mortals rather than the distant proclamations of outer gods. But to pursue this vision, Ranni needed to break free from the two fingers' control, and that required her death. Not metaphorical death, not the small deaths of transformation or relinquishment, but actual, genuine death. She needed to kill her Empyrean flesh, to sever the connection that bound her soul to the greater will's designs. So Ranni plotted treason on a cosmic scale. She went to Malekith, or perhaps she manipulated others into going, and a fragment of the Rune of Death was stolen from the Black Blade. This fragment, this piece of destined death that Queen Marika had sealed away to grant the demigods immortality, became Ranni's tool for freedom. She performed a fearsome rite, imbuing the daggers of the Black Knife assassins with the power to kill immortals. The Black Knives were Numen women from the Eternal Cities, a race with ties to Queen Marika herself. This connection has spawned endless speculation. Did Marika know of Ranni's plot? Did she secretly sanction it? Did the goddess who sealed away death collaborate with the princess who sought to unleash it? The evidence is contradictory, the truth obscured by time and treachery. What is known is this. On the night of Black Knives, two demigods died simultaneously. Godwyn the Golden was murdered in Leyndell, the assassins carving the curse mark of death into his flesh. And at the exact same moment, atop the divine tower of Leonia, Ranni took her own life with the same cursed power. The synchronicity was crucial. Had Godwyn died alone, the full curse mark would have killed him completely, soul and body together. But because two demigods perished at the same instant, the curse mark split into two half-wheels. Godwyn's soul died while his body endured. Ranni's body died while her soul endured. For Ranni, this was liberation. Her Empyrean flesh, the thing that bound her to the two fingers, was destroyed. Her corpse can still be found atop the divine tower of Leonia, perfectly preserved, bearing half the curse mark. But her soul escaped, transferred into a doll, modeled after her mentor, the Snow Witch, a miniature body with 4 arms, with joints like a puppet, but entirely free from the greater will's control. In death, Ranni found freedom. But that freedom came at a terrible price. The Night of Black Knives set in motion the Shagab events that would become the Shattering. Marika, driven to the brink by Godwyn's death, shattered the Elden Ring. The war between demigods began. The lands between descended into chaos and ruin. And while Ranni had achieved her goal of breaking free, the world burned around her. Ranni went into hiding, maintaining a low profile in the aftermath of the night. She secluded herself in Rani's rise in Liurnia, attended by her loyal followers. Blade, despite being created by the Two Fingers to serve her, remained loyal, though the conflict between his programmed purpose and his genuine devotion would eventually drive him to madness. War Counselor Iji, the troll blacksmith, crafted weapons and armor for her cause, and Preceptor Saluvis, her advisor, plotted his own schemes in the shadows. When the Tarnished arrives in the lands between, Rani approaches them first under the alias Renna, giving them the spirit calling bell and lone wolf ashes, providing them with the ability to summon spirit ashes in combat. This early meeting, seemingly inconsequential, is actually Rani evaluating whether this particular Tarnished might be useful to her plans. Later, when the Tarnished reaches Rani's rise and meets her properly, she proposes servitude, not as master and slave, but as allies in a common cause. She sends the Tarnished on a quest to defeat Star Scourge Radahn, to free the stars so that fate can resume its movement, so that the path to Nokron, the Eternal City, can be opened. In Nokron, the Tarnished retrieves the Fingerslayer blade, a cursed weapon born from a corpse, designed specifically to harm the Greater Will and its vassals. With this blade, Rani can kill her Two Fingers, the entities that claim to speak for the Greater Will, that have tried to control her destiny from birth. Rani's questline leads the Tarnished through depths both literal and metaphorical, into Nokron and Nokstella, the Eternal Cities where ancient civilizations worship the moon and stars, into the Lake of Rot, where scarlet Aeonia blooms and the outer god of Rot holds sway, down to the Moonlight Altar, where Rani's destiny with the Dark Moon can finally be fulfilled. At the Cathedral of Manoseles, in the depths beneath Liurnia, Rani performs her final ritual. She kills her Two Fingers with the Fingerslayer blade, severing the last connection to the Greater Will. She retrieves the Dark Moon Ring, the symbol of her covenant with the Tarnished, and she prepares to ascend. But not to the Erd Tree, not to claim the throne that her mother once held. Rani's vision is different. She seeks to remove the Elden Ring from the world entirely, to create an age of stars where the lands between would be free from the direct control of outer gods, where mortality and divinity would be separated by the cold dark of space and the guidance of the moon. In her words, the order would be not of gold, but the stars and moon of the chill night, and it would be kept far away from the earth beneath our feet. This is not darkness for its own sake. It is separation, distance, the acknowledgement that gods and mortals should not occupy the same space. The divine will should not dictate every moment of mortal existence. Under Rani's age of stars, people would be free to live without fear that every choice, every destiny was predetermined by cosmic entities beyond their comprehension. If the Tarnished chooses to follow Rani's path, defeating the final boss and selecting her summon sign instead of mending the Elden Ring, the Age of Stars begins. Rani takes the Tarnished as her consort, and together they leave the lands between behind, embarking into the cold dark of space, where the moon and stars hold sway. It is an ending that promises freedom at the cost of guidance, that offers autonomy at the price of divine protection. It is cold and uncertain, but it is chosen, not imposed. And perhaps that is what Rani sought all along. Not a better god, but no god at all. Not a kinder master, but mastery of one's own fate. Rani is often called a villain in the story of Elden Ring. After all, She orchestrated the Night of Black Knives, the assassination that led to Godwyn's corruption and the spread of those who live in death. She manipulated countless people, including the tarnished, into serving her ends. She killed her own body and let her half-brother suffer eternal half-death to achieve her goals. But she is also the only demigod who offers a genuine alternative to the Golden Order, the only one whose ending truly breaks the cycle, rather than simply installing a new god in the old system. Her methods were brutal, her sacrifices terrible, but her vision was one of liberation. Whether that makes her hero or villain depends on your perspective, on whether you believe the price she paid and made others pay was worth the freedom she promises. Rani the Witch, the Lunar Princess, the architect of the Night of Black Knives, she killed herself to be free. She killed her brother to break the world. And in the end, she offered that same terrible freedom to everyone else. Chapter 5. Malenia and Miquella, the twin prodigies. They were called the twin prodigies, children of a self-incestuous union between Marika and her other half, Radagon, born cursed yet powerful beyond measure, marked as Empyreans despite afflictions that would have destroyed lesser beings. Malenia and Miquella were perhaps the most tragic of all the demigods, for their story is one of love twisted into manipulation, of devotion corrupted by ambition, of a bond between siblings that seemed pure until the truth was finally revealed. Malenia was born with the scarlet rot already eating at her flesh. This was not a disease that could be cured, not an affliction that could be purged with simple medicine or prayer. The scarlet rot was the touch of an outer god, the manifestation of decay itself, a plague that turned everything it touched into puddles of corruption and pools of poison. From her first breath, Malenia was dying, her body consumed from within by a force that would not relent. She lost her right arm, she lost her left leg. The rot ate away at her until there was nothing left but stumps, until Miquella crafted prosthetics of unalloyed gold, a special metal he developed specifically to resist the influence of outer gods. These golden limbs became part of her, beautiful and terrible, a testament to both her curse and her brother's genius. But Malenia did not let the rot define her. She became the blade of Miquella, training herself into perhaps the greatest swordswoman the lands between had ever known. She moved with impossible grace despite her prosthetics, her blade dancing through enemies like water flowing downhill. Her fighting style was called the waterfowl dance, a technique of such beauty and lethality that even the mightiest warriors fell before it. She had never known defeat, not once in all her battles, not in the wars of the Shattering, not in the countless skirmishes that followed. Malenia was undefeated, unmatched, a warrior goddess wrapped in rot and gold. Her devotion to Miquella was absolute. Where other demigods fought for their own ambitions, for their own great runes and thrones, Malenia fought only for her brother. She called herself his blade, his protector, his champion. Everything she did, every battle she fought, every enemy she cut down was in service to Miquella's dream. And what was that dream? Miquella was cursed with eternal childhood. His body would never mature past that of a young boy, forever trapped in youth, while his mind continued to grow, to learn, to plan. This curse, like his sister's rot, was a mark of the union between Marika and Radagon, a punishment for a god creating children with itself. But Miquella's curse ran deeper than simple arrested development. It was, as later revelations would show, a curse of nascency, of incompleteness, of never being able to see anything through to fruition. Everything Miquella touched withered before it could bloom. Every plan he made crumbled before completion. Every dream he dreamed turned to ash in his hands. Yet Miquella was brilliant, perhaps the most fearsome empyrean of all, as Malenia herself proclaimed. He studied incantations, developing new schools of magic. He created unalloyed gold, metal that could resist the influence of outer gods, fashioning needles that, when inserted into the body, could ward off their touch. He gave one such needle to Malenia, placing it in the flower of Ionia that bloomed from her rot, holding back the worst of the plague's effects. But Miquella possessed another power, one far more insidious than his brilliance or his magical innovations. He could compel affection, not through force, not through violence, but through a supernatural charm that made people love him. It was not a choice they made. It was something done to them, an enchantment woven so subtly that victims never realized their will had been stolen. Miquella looked upon the Golden Order, upon the endless cycle of outer gods manipulating the world through their chosen vessels, and he decided he would become a god himself. But not a god bound by an outer god's will, a god who stood alone, who needed no higher power, who could create a gentler world through his own divine authority. To achieve this, he needed to ascend, and to ascend, he needed to shed everything that made him who he was. Miquella abandoned the Golden Order and turned to the Halic tree, a massive tree he had been growing in secret in the far north, in the consecrated snowfield where eternal winter reigned. The Halic tree was to be his answer to the Ur tree, a place where the cursed and the afflicted could find sanctuary, where those rejected by the Golden Order might live without shame. Albinaurics, the artificial life forms hunted and enslaved across the lands between, flocked to the Halic tree. The Cleanrot Knights, warriors who willingly contracted Malenia's scarlet rot to serve her cause, made the Halic tree their home. At the base of the Halic tree, Miquella enclosed himself in a cocoon, attempting to mature, to break free from his curse of eternal childhood. He watered the tree with his own blood, his Empyrean blood, hoping to nurture it into something that could rival the Ur tree itself. But the curse held firm. Miquella could not mature. The Halic tree, despite its size, despite its beauty, began to rot from within. The dream sanctuary became a dream deferred, another of Miquella's plans that could not reach completion. And so, Miquella devised a new plan, one far darker than any who worshipped him could have imagined. He used his charm on Morg, the Lord of Blood. He made the Omen demigod love him, made Morg believe it was his own idea to kidnap the cocoon from the Halic tree and bring it to Mogwyn Palace. While Malenia was away fighting in Caelid, while his defenders were occupied elsewhere, Morg took Miquella away, believing he was claiming an Empyrean for himself, never realizing he had been manipulated from the start. In Mogwyn Palace, Miquella began his true work. He discarded parts of himself, stripping away aspects of his being in preparation for godhood. He left behind his love, his fears, his doubts. Piece by piece, Miquella unmade himself, casting off everything human, everything vulnerable, everything that might prevent him from ascending. And through all of this, Malenia waited. She returned from Caelid, from the battle with Radan, where she had unleashed the scarlet rot and bloomed, where she had whispered to the Star Scourge about Miquella's plans. She made her way back to the Halic tree, and there she stood guard, waiting for her brother to return, believing he would come back to her, believing that everything he did was for their dream of a gentler world. But Miquella was not coming back, not as the brother she remembered, not as the kind soul who had crafted her golden prosthetics and held her when the rot became unbearable. The truth revealed in the shadow of the Erd tree is devastating. Miquella had made a vow in childhood with Radahn, a promise that the Star Scourge would be his consort when Miquella ascended to godhood. Whether Radahn truly wanted this, or whether he too was charmed, is unclear, but the vow was made. And when Radahn proved too strong to be killed easily, when he held the stars in place and refused to die in the normal course of the shattering, Miquella sent Malenia to force the issue. He sent his sister, his devoted blade, to fight Radahn to the death. He knew she would bloom. He knew the scarlet rot would consume Kylid. He knew she would fall into a coma and have to be carried back broken and defeated. He knew all of this, and he sent her anyway, because he needed Radahn dead so that the stars would move again, so that fate could proceed toward his ascension. Malenia, the undefeated, met her match in Radahn. Their battle ended in mutual destruction, neither able to claim victory. Malenia bloomed her rot and fell into a coma. Radahn was infected and driven mad. Both demigods were reduced to shadows of themselves, all for Miquella's grand design. When Malenia finally returned to the Halig tree, when she placed herself at the base of the tree to await her brother's return, she found only emptiness. The cocoon was gone. Miquella had left without her. And there she sits, even now rotting slowly, waiting for a brother who abandoned her, who used her devotion as a tool, who cast her aside when she was no longer useful. In the land of shadow, Miquella completed his transformation. He used Morg's corpse as a vessel, grafting Radahn's soul into it with the help of forbidden rites. He created promised consort Radahn, resurrecting the Star Scourge in a new form, binding him through the childhood vow. And with Radahn at his side, Miquella ascended to godhood, the gentle god, the god of compassion, the god who would create a world without suffering. But to become that god, Miquella had to discard his compassion. He had to cast away his love. He had to sacrifice everyone who cared for him, had to manipulate and use them all, had to become something cold and calculating beneath his beautiful exterior. Saint Trina, the other half of Miquella, the embodiment of his love and gentleness, lies discarded in the shadow of the Erd tree, left behind like trash. When spoken to through sleep, when asked about Miquella's plan, Saint Trina begs for death. Grant Miquella death, she pleads. It would be better for him to die than to become a god. Because Saint Trina knows what Miquella does not, that a god without love is no god at all, that compassion enforced through charm is not compassion, but slavery, that a gentler world built on manipulation and sacrifice is just another prison, just another cage, no better than the golden order Miquella claimed to reject. Malenia and Miquella, the twin prodigies, one devoted unto death, the other devoted unto godhood. Malenia gave everything for her brother and received only abandonment. Miquella gave away everything human in himself and became something divine and terrible and empty. Their tragedy is perhaps the deepest of all the demigods, because unlike the others who fell to ambition or madness or rot, Malenia and Miquella seem to genuinely love each other, seem to care in a world where caring was weakness, seem to offer hope that something pure might survive the shattering. But in the end, even love could be weaponized, even devotion could be corrupted, even the kindest intentions could pave a road to damnation. Millennia still waits in the Halig tree, her rot spreading, her memories fading, clutching desperately to the belief that Miquella will return, that her brother will come back, that everything she suffered had meaning. But Miquella discarded meaning when he discarded love, and the god he became cares nothing for the sister who gave everything for him. This is the fate of the twin prodigies. This is the price of godhood. This is what happens when even love becomes another tool in the pursuit of power. Chapter 6. Mesmer, the Impaler. The Forgotten Crusader. There are some children of Marika who are erased from history, some whose names were struck from records, whose deeds were buried beneath lies and silence, whose very existence became a secret too terrible to acknowledge. Among these forgotten children, none was more tragic than Mesmer the Impaler. Mesmer was born with red hair like his father Radagon, but cursed in ways that made even the Omen twins seem blessed by comparison. Within Mesmer's body, an abyssal serpent coiled around his insides, a creature of malice and hunger that threatened to consume him entirely. This was not the holy serpent of ancient religions, not the immortal Aegle that Rykard would later merge with. This was something darker, something primordial, something that wanted only to devour and destroy. Queen Marika, seeing her son's affliction, made a choice. She could not cure him. She could not remove the serpent, but she could bind it, could seal it behind a divine barrier. She plucked out one of Mesmer's eyes and replaced it with a seal, a golden grace that held the abyssal serpent at bay, that prevented it from bursting free and consuming her son from within. But even bound, even sealed, Mesmer's curse was too great to be allowed in the lands between. The sight of him would raise questions. His very existence contradicted the Golden Order's facade of perfection. And so Marika did what she always did with children who embarrassed her, with offspring who challenged her carefully crafted image. She cast him out. But unlike Morgoth and Morg, who were simply imprisoned beneath Lendil, Mesmer was sent far beyond the borders of the lands between. He was dispatched to the land of shadow, a realm hidden behind a veil, separated from the main world, where Marika had already sent the Hornsent and other peoples who opposed the Golden Order's rise. Mesmer was not sent alone. He was given an army, a purpose, a crusade to wage. His mission was to purge the land of shadow of all who would not submit to the Golden Order, to burn away the old ways, to ensure that nothing from that hidden realm could ever threaten Marika's reign. And Mesmer obeyed, because despite being abandoned, despite being cast out like refuse, Mesmer remained loyal to his mother. He led crusade after crusade, burning villages, impaling enemies on massive spears, leaving forests of the dead in his wake. His knights, clad in black armor, followed him without question, believing in the righteousness of their cause, believing they were bringing civilization to a land of savages. The Hornsent especially suffered under Mesmer's campaign. These people, who had their own divine traditions, who worshipped the crucible in its raw form, who had built spiraling towers toward heaven, were declared heretics. Their cities burned, their culture was destroyed. Mesmer's forces hunted them relentlessly, showing no mercy, granting no quarter. Mesmer established strongholds throughout the land of shadow. His main fortress, became a monument to his crusade, decorated with the bodies of those he had slain, with flame and shadow intertwined. He took the title of Impaler, and his method of execution became legendary. Massive stakes driven through bodies left to stand as warnings, as monuments to the Golden Order's might. But Mesmer was not simply a monster. He was a son seeking approval that would never come. He was a warrior fighting for a cause that had already abandoned him. Every enemy he impaled, every village he burned, every prayer he offered to his mother's grace was an attempt to prove himself worthy, to show that even a cursed son could serve the Golden Order. Marika never responded. She sealed the land of shadow behind a veil of concealment, ensuring that no one from the lands between could reach it, that no news of Mesmer's crusade could return to embarrass her. She removed all mentions of him from history, struck his name from records, ensured that future generations would never know she had birthed such a cursed child. Mesmer fought on in isolation, maintaining his crusade for ages, believing that one day his mother would recognize his service, would acknowledge his sacrifice, would tell him he had done well. He kept a locket with her image, held it close, prayed to it when doubt crept into his mind. He convinced himself that the burning, the killing, the endless cruelty was necessary, was righteous, was what his mother wanted. But the truth, hidden in plain sight, was that Marika did not care. She had used Mesmer to solve a problem, to eliminate threats she could not deal with openly, and then she had discarded him. The veil she placed over the land of shadow was not to protect it from the outside world. It was to protect the outside world from ever discovering what she had done, what sins she had committed in her rise to power, what atrocities she had sanctioned in the name of the Golden Order. In the shadow of the Erd-tree, when the Tarnished finally reaches the land of shadow through the withered body of Miquella, they discover a world frozen in eternal twilight, where Mesmer still rules, still burns, still impales. He has become the thing he fought, a tyrant maintaining order through terror, his crusade having long since lost any meaning beyond the crusade itself. When confronted, Mesmer reveals the depths of his tragedy. He knows his mother abandoned him. He knows the Golden Order moved on without him. He knows his crusade was never about righteousness, but about cleaning up Marika's past mistakes. And yet, he cannot stop, because to stop would be to admit that everything he did, everyone he killed, every innocent he impaled, was meaningless. The abyssal serpent writhes within him, held back only by his mother's seal. Mesmer fears that seal breaking, fears becoming the monster he already is, fears that without the crusade to define him, he will have nothing left but the serpent's hunger. His knights, those who have served him faithfully, begin to question. Some desert, unable to continue the endless killing. Others remain, but their loyalty is to Mesmer himself, not to the Golden Order that abandoned them all. They see in their commander a reflection of their own abandonment, their own betrayal, their own realization that they were fighting for a lie. Mesmer the Impaler stands as perhaps the clearest example of Marika's ruthlessness. She was willing to birth children and cast them aside the moment they became inconvenient. She was willing to commit genocide by proxy, to use her own son as a weapon, and then pretend he never existed. She was willing to lie, to manipulate, to erase history itself, to maintain the Golden Order's image of perfection. And Mesmer, loyal unto death, still carries her locket, still hopes that maybe, somehow, she might acknowledge him, still believes that if he just impales one more enemy, burns one more village, completes one more crusade, his mother might finally tell him he was enough. But that acknowledgement will never come, because Marika is imprisoned within the Erd Tree, and even if she were free, she would not spare a thought for the son she threw away so long ago. This is the fate of Mesmer. This is the price of being Marika's inconvenient truth. This is what happens when a mother values reputation over children, when divine perfection requires the erasure of anything imperfect. Mesmer still burns, still impales, still crusades, not for the Golden Order, not for his mother, but because stopping would mean confronting the emptiness at the center of his existence. And that emptiness is too vast, too terrible, too honest to bear. Chapter 7. Godric the Grafted, the Diluted Heir. Not all demigods are born of divine blood directly. Some are descendants many generations removed, their divinity diluted through centuries of mortal intermarriage, their power a pale shadow of their legendary ancestors. Godric the Grafted represents the pathetic end of the golden lineage, a coward wearing the name of heroes, a failure desperately trying to steal the greatness he could never earn. Godric was a distant descendant of Godfrey and Marika, so far removed from the source that his claim to divinity was laughable. While true demigods like Godwyn and Melania bore their power naturally, while they radiated divine grace simply by existing, Godric had to scrape and claw for every scrap of strength he possessed. He was not mighty like Radan. He was not cunning like Rani. He was not devoted like Melania. He was simply ambitious, and his ambition far exceeded his ability to achieve it. During the Shattering, when the demigods went to war over the great runes, Godric saw opportunity. He raised an army and marched on Leyndell, believing that perhaps in the chaos, perhaps with the throne empty and Marika imprisoned, even he might claim the title of Elden Lord. He styled himself a contender, spoke grandly of his birthright, convinced himself that the blood of Godfrey ran strong enough in his veins to grant him victory. Morgoth met him at the gates of the capital. The veiled monarch, the Omen, who defended the Erd Tree despite being rejected by it, looked upon Godric and saw not a mighty warrior or a cunning schemer, but a pretender, a weakling playing at greatness. The battle was brief. Morgoth humiliated Godric, beat him so thoroughly that Godric fled the field in women's clothing, hiding among refugees, abandoning his army to save his own skin. This cowardice defined Godric's character. He was not a warrior who stood and fought when outmatched. He was not a leader who protected his followers even in defeat. He was a survivor who would do anything, sacrifice anyone, debase himself completely if it meant living another day. Godric retreated to Stormvale Castle, the ancient fortress in Limgrave that had once belonged to his distant ancestors. There, he declared himself the rightful lord, imposed his rule through terror, and began his grotesque practice, grafting. If Godric could not be powerful through birthright, if divine blood ran too thin in his veins to grant him the strength of true demigods, then he would steal that strength. He would take the body parts of warriors and graft them onto himself, adding their might to his own, building himself into something greater through sheer accumulated mass. Stormvale became a charnel house, the tarnished who answered the call to return to the lands between, warriors seeking to claim the Elden Ring, found themselves captured by Godric's soldiers. Some were killed outright, their bodies harvested for parts. Others were kept alive, limbs removed one by one, grafted onto Godric or onto his grafted minions, monsters stitched together from multiple bodies, abominations that should never have existed. Godric's throne room became decorated with corpses. His bannermen became grafted scions. Multiple torsos and heads merged into spider-like horrors that crawled through the castle. The courtyard filled with trolls whose backs had been grafted with mounted soldiers, creating terrible hybrids that could both smash with giant clubs and stab with spears. And Godric himself became more monster than man. His body grew massive, bloated with stolen parts. Arms sprouted from his torso, each one taken from a different warrior, each one a trophy of his desperate hunger for power. His face, already weak and pathetic, became surrounded by a crown of additional limbs, like some grotesque flower of flesh and bone. He called himself the Golden. He claimed the blood of Godfrey. He spoke of the ancient glories of the golden lineage, as if he embodied them, as if grafting corpses onto himself somehow made him worthy of his ancestors' legacy. But beneath the bluster, beneath the grafted muscles and stolen strength, Godric knew the truth. He was a fraud, a coward, a pretender who could never measure up to the demigods he claimed kinship with. And this knowledge ate at him more than any weapon ever could. When the Tarnished finally confronts Godric, when they fight through his grafted horrors and reach his throne, Godric reveals the depths of his desperation. In the middle of battle, when he realizes he is losing, he does something unthinkable. He severs his own arm and grafts a dragon's head onto the stump, using the power of ancient dragon communion that Godwyn had established ages ago, perverting that noble practice into one more act of desecration. The dragon screams in agony, forced into service, its head twisted and corrupted by being attached to Godric's unworthy flesh. Godric breathes fire and shouts about his right to rule, about the power flowing through his veins, about how he will remake the world in his image. But it is all theatre, all desperate posturing. The dragon's power is immense, but it cannot overcome the fundamental weakness at Godric's core. He is not a demigod, no matter how many demigods, distant relatives, he grafts to himself. He is not divine, no matter how loudly he proclaims his bloodline. When Godric falls, when his great rune is claimed, what remains is not a mighty demigod, but a sad collection of stolen parts. The grafted limbs begin to rot immediately, the magic holding them together dissipating. Godric's body dissolves into a puddle of mixed flesh, each part trying to return to its original owner, finding only decay. The great rune he held, the fragment of the Elden Ring that had elevated him above mortal warriors, returns to circulation, and without it, without the one genuine piece of divinity he possessed, Godric is revealed for what he always was. Nothing. A footnote in history. A distant heir who thought proximity to greatness made him great. A coward who hid in women's clothes and stole the strength of others because he had none of his own. Godric the grafted. Godric the golden. Godric the pretender. He wanted so badly to be worthy of the lineage he claimed, wanted so desperately to be remembered as a true demigod, wanted with every fibre of his being to prove that the blood of Godfrey ran strong in him. But wanting is not having. Ambition is not achievement, and stealing the strength of others only reveals how weak you truly are. In the grand tragedy of the demigods, where brothers murdered brothers, where sisters were abandoned, where curses destroyed the mighty and madness consumed the wise, Godric stands apart. He is not tragic because he was cursed or betrayed or manipulated. He is tragic because he was simply inadequate, and no amount of grafting could ever change that fundamental truth. Chapter 8. The Greater Will and Divine Abandonment. The demigods did not fight in a vacuum. Behind every tragedy, beneath every curse, within every ambition, lurked the influence of entities beyond mortal or even divine comprehension. The Greater Will, the outer gods, the cosmic forces that had shaped the world since before the Erd-tree existed, they too played their part in the demigods' tragic fates. The Greater Will was the supreme deity of the Golden Order, the cosmic entity that had sent the Elden Beast down from the stars in a golden meteor, that had established the Elden Ring as the fundamental law of reality, that had chosen Queen Marika as its vessel and granted her godhood in exchange for service. But the Greater Will did not speak directly to its subjects. It communicated through intermediaries, through the two fingers found in various locations across the lands between, ancient entities that claimed to interpret divine will, that selected Empyreans and guided the course of history according to their master's design. Or so everyone believed. The truth, revealed slowly throughout the Tarnished's journey, is far more disturbing. The two fingers do not have a direct connection to the Greater Will. They send messages to their master, certainly, but those messages take ages to receive response. The Greater Will is distant, perhaps impossibly so, perhaps no longer even aware of the lands between, perhaps having moved on to other worlds, other vessels, other games of power. When Queen Marika shattered the Elden Ring, the two fingers did not receive immediate guidance on how to respond. They flailed, they schemed, they selected Empyreans and cultivated champions, but they did so without clear direction, improvising based on ancient protocols and their own understanding of what their master would want. The Greater Will had effectively abandoned the lands between, the god who demanded worship, who established the Golden Order, who punished Marika for her blasphemy by imprisoning her within the Erd-tree. That god was no longer paying attention. The system ran on momentum, on the desperate efforts of intermediaries trying to maintain an order whose architect had long since departed, and the outer gods, those other cosmic entities that sought influence in the world, moved to fill the vacuum. The frenzied flame, god of chaos and destruction, spread through those who had been mistreated by the Golden Order, offering them the power to burn everything away, to return the world to primordial unity through fire. The god of rot, associated with decay and rebirth, infected millennia from birth, attempting to use her as a vessel for its own ascension. The Formless Mother granted Mog his blood magic, using the omen's pain and rage to establish a foothold in the lands between. The outer god of the death, birds, an ancient entity from before the Erd-tree's time, persisted in the margins, worshipped by those who remembered when death was natural, when souls did not return to trees but moved on to whatever lay beyond. Each outer god sought to replace the Greater Will, to become the new supreme deity, to reshape reality according to their own nature. The demigods were caught between these cosmic forces, some willingly serving as vessels, others fighting to remain free, all of them ultimately pawns in games played by entities that could barely perceive them as individuals. When Marika shattered the Elden Ring, she broke the greater will's system of control. The great runes scattered among her children, fragments of cosmic law distributed to beings who had no idea how to use them properly, who treated them as simple sources of power rather than fundamental aspects of reality itself. The demigods went to war, each thinking they fought for personal ambition, for great runes and thrones and power. But in truth, they were fighting a proxy war between outer gods, their conflicts shaped by forces they could not see, their fates written in cosmic negotiations far beyond their understanding. Radan held the stars in place, not just to protect Celia or freeze Rani's fate, but because the stars themselves were tied to the greater will's order, because meteors had brought the Elden Beast and other cosmic entities to the world, because controlling stellar movement meant controlling the arrival of new outer gods. Millennia's scarlet rot was not just a curse, but a divine claim, the god of rot marking her as a potential vessel, attempting to birth itself fully into the world through her affliction. Every time she bloomed, every time the rot spread, it was not simply disease but divine manifestation, an outer god attempting to pierce through the barrier between its realm and physical reality. Miquella's charm ability was similarly tied to cosmic forces. His power to compel affection was not just personal charisma amplified, but something deeper, something that suggested connection to forces of love and obsession that existed beyond mortal understanding. When he discarded his love in the land of shadow, when he cast away Sente Trina, he was not just shedding emotion, but severing ties to whatever cosmic entity had granted him that terrible power. The demigods were never truly free. From birth to death, they were battlegrounds for cosmic conflicts, vessels for divine ambitions, pieces moved by hands too vast to see. Even their rebellions were constrained by these forces. Rani's rejection of the greater will required the power of the Fingerslayer blade, a weapon that could harm cosmic entities, but using it simply traded one master for another, the greater will for the dark moon, and through it all, the greater will remained silent. After imprisoning Marika within the Erd Tree, after punishing her for shattering the Elden Ring, the Supreme Deity offered no further guidance. The two fingers waited for instructions that never came. The Golden Order crumbled without divine direction. The demigods tore each other apart, while the god who had elevated them in the first place watched from incomprehensible distance, if it watched at all. This is perhaps the cruelest aspect of the demigods' tragedy. They were not destroyed by divine wrath or cosmic justice. They were destroyed by divine indifference. The greater will cared so little about its chosen people that it could not even be bothered to intervene when they destroyed themselves. The God who demanded absolute worship, who structured reality itself around its vision of order, abandoned that reality the moment maintaining it became inconvenient. The tarnished, returning to the lands between after ages of exile, found a world where gods had stopped caring, where the systems of divine control persisted purely through institutional momentum, where intermediaries like the Two Fingers and the Finger Maidens kept following protocols for a master who might not even remember they existed. In this context, every demigod struggle becomes even more futile. Morgott, defending an Erd Tree that had rejected him, was defending a symbol of a god that had abandoned everyone. Millennia's devotion to Miquella Was devotion to someone himself devoted to becoming just another cosmic tyrant? Mog's dynasty, built on blood, was built to serve an outer god that cared nothing for his pain or ambition. Only Rani truly understood. Only she recognized that freedom required not replacing one god with another, but removing divine influence entirely. Her age of stars promised separation, distance, a world where cosmic entities could not casually meddle in mortal affairs. Whether she could deliver on that promise remains uncertain, but at least she recognized the problem. The Greater Will's abandonment was complete. The demigods fought and died in a world where their supposed patron deity had left them to their fate, where every prayer went unanswered, where grace itself had become just residual energy from a long-departed god. And perhaps that abandonment was the point. Perhaps the Greater Will never cared about the individuals it elevated. Perhaps demigods were always meant to be tools, used and discarded once their purpose was served. Perhaps divine love was always conditional, always contingent on usefulness, always ready to withdraw the moment obedience wavered. The demigods learned this lesson too late. By the time they understood, they had been abandoned. They had already destroyed each other, already committed atrocities in the name of masters who no longer watched, already sacrificed everything for validation that would never come. This is the ultimate tragedy of the demigods. Not that they were cursed or betrayed or manipulated by each other, but that they were all fighting for the approval of gods who had stopped caring long ago. Chapter 9. The Consequences. A world in ruin. The shattering did not simply kill demigods. It killed the world itself. Slowly, painfully, across centuries of endless war, the lands between transformed from a realm of golden splendor into a broken wasteland where death itself had become corrupted, and even the trees wept blood. Travel through the lands. Between, and you witness the consequences of the demigods' war in every region, every corrupted valley, every burned forest and poisoned lake. Each area bears the scars of their ambitions, each landscape twisted by their curses, each population decimated by their conflicts. Limgrave, the starting area, seems almost peaceful at first glance. Green fields, scattered ruins, the soft glow of grace points marking safe paths. But look closer and you see the rot beneath the beauty. The land is overrun with tarnished who never made it past the first challenges. Their corpses littering roadsides, their equipment rusted and broken. Godric's soldiers patrol the roads, kidnapping any who seem strong enough to graft, dragging victims back to Stormvale Castle to feed their lord's grotesque appetites. The tree sentinel that guards the first approach to the Erd tree has gone mad with purpose, killing anyone who approaches without understanding why, following protocols from an age when the Golden Order made sense. Limgrave is where dreams of claiming the Elden Ring die quickly, where tarnished learn that the lands between do not welcome their return, that grace might guide them, but will not save them. Lernia of the Lakes was once the jewel of the Carian royal family, home to the Academy of Raya Lucaria, where the greatest sorcerers in the world studied the stars and glintstone. Now the Academy is sealed, protecting the broken mind of Queen Renala, who sits in the Grand Library, endlessly cradling an amber egg, muttering to herself about rebirth, about lost love, about Radagon who abandoned her. The countryside has flooded, countless villages drowned, populations displaced. Carian Manor stands empty except for 3 fingers trying to grasp the stars. The various sorcerers and scholars who once made Liurnia a center of learning have either fled, died, or gone mad like their queen. Knowledge that took centuries to accumulate moulders in sealed towers, inaccessible, forgotten, useless to the dying world. The Albinaurics, artificial life created through Liurnia's alchemy, suffer perhaps worst of all. First-generation Albinaurics are hunted relentlessly, their blood valuable for arcane purposes, their lives worth nothing. Second-generation Albinaurics lose the use of their legs as they age, reduced to crawling, easy prey for those who would exploit them. The village where they sought sanctuary, near the Halleck tree, is littered with corpses, the clean-rot knights who should have protected them, either dead or departed. Caelid stands as the most visible monument to the Demigods' war. The entire region was consumed by Malenia's scarlet rot when she bloomed in her battle with Radan. What was once verdant land is now a hellscape of red corruption, where the ground itself writhes with disease, where massive crows and dogs have mutated into monstrous sizes, where pools of rot eat through armor and flesh alike. Radan wanders the wailing dunes, mad and feral, occasionally pausing to eat the corpses of the warriors who died trying to grant him peace. His festival continues, a grim celebration of death. But even when champions defeat him, even when the Star Scourge finally falls, Caelid remains poisoned. The rot does not recede. The land does not heal. Malenia's bloom was too complete, too powerful, too terrible to be undone. The clean-rot knights who served Malenia willingly infected themselves with her plague, wearing it as a badge of honor. But their suffering is evident in every agonized movement, every labored breath. They remain loyal even as the rot consumes them, even knowing they will never be cured, even understanding that Malenia herself has fallen into an endless sleep and cannot acknowledge their sacrifice. Altus Plateau, the high ground where Lindell sits, should be the heart of civilization. Instead, it is a war zone. Minor Erd trees burn, their sacred light corrupted by flame. Volcano Manor's recusants hunt champions trying to reach the capital, killing them before they can even attempt to claim the throne. The perfumers, once artists who crafted beautiful scents, have turned their knowledge to warfare, creating acid and poison, supporting whichever side pays them more. Lindell itself, the royal capital, has been under siege for so long that siege has become its natural state. Morgoth defends the outer walls while the inner city decays. The population has dwindled to almost nothing. Most citizens either fled or dead, the remaining NPCs going about their business in empty streets, maintaining routines that no longer mean anything. The Erd tree at the center is sealed by thorns, massive spikes that burn anyone who touches them, denying entry to everyone, even Morgoth himself. The tree that once symbolized eternal life and divine grace has become a prison, its light dimmed, its blessing withdrawn. It stands as a monument to broken promises, to a covenant shattered beyond repair. And beneath Lendl, in the subterranean shunning grounds, the Omen and other cursed beings survive in filth, exactly as they have for centuries. Their suffering never acknowledged, their existence never improved. The Golden Order's perfect society was built on a foundation of torture and neglect, and even with the order broken, nothing changes for those at the bottom. Mount Gelmir is an active volcano where Rykard's blasphemy has taken root. The serpent god Islay fills the mountain with magma and death, and iron virgins crawl through the passages, kidnapping victims to feed to their serpentine master. The abductor virgins at the Academy of Raya Lucaria, connected to Gelmir through some infernal transport, drag scholars and students into the volcano's depths, where they are either killed or fed to the serpent. Tanith's recusants in Volcano Manor maintain their assassination contracts, killing specific targets across the lands between, weakening champions who might otherwise challenge Rykard. But their mission has lost meaning. Rykard is already defeated by the time most tarnished reach him. The god-devouring serpent has already failed to devour gods. The blasphemy continues purely through momentum, with no purpose beyond the killing itself. The mountaintops of the giants is a frozen waste where the last giant, cursed by Marika to tend the forge of flame, guards the fire that can burn the Erdtree. This giant is the last survivor of genocide, the final remnant of a race Godfrey and his armies exterminated to ensure the Erdtree's dominance. He maintains the forge, knowing that its use will destroy the last thing his people created, knowing that he aids the very civilization that slaughtered his kind. The consecrated snowfield beyond the mountains is an eternal blizzard where the Halig tree grows, rotting from within despite Miquella's best efforts. The Albanorics who sought sanctuary there huddle in frozen misery. The Cleanrot Knights stand guard over nothing, their goddess fallen, their purpose gone, but their duty unending. And deep beneath everything, in the deep-root depths and Safra River and Nokron and Nokstella, the underground civilizations that predated the Erdtree continue their slow decay. These eternal cities, punished long ago for their blasphemy against the greater will, exist in permanent twilight, their populations gone or transformed into mindless husks, their grand architecture crumbling into the dark. Godwyn's corruption spreads through the roots of the Erdtree, tainting everything the tree touches, ensuring that even those who die properly cannot return to the tree as they should. Those who live in death spread across the world, neither properly alive nor truly dead, worshipping a prince who is himself trapped in an incomplete state. Every region has become a monument to failure. Every area shows what happens when gods fight and nobody wins. The demigods warred over a throne that nobody could claim, fighting for a ring that nobody could repair, serving gods that had abandoned them, destroying the very world they claimed to be saving. The common people, those without great runes, or divine blood, or cosmic backing, simply tried to survive. They fled combat zones, huddled in ruins, prayed to gods that did not answer, and died in vast numbers without ever understanding why their world had fallen apart. They were collateral damage in divine conflicts, innocent victims of curses they did not earn, sacrifices on altars they did not choose. No victor emerged from the shattering. Every demigod who claimed a great rune either died or was driven mad or achieved a fate worse than death. Morgoth defended a capital that rejected him. Morg built a dynasty that served his own enslavement. Rykard became a serpent that could never stop consuming. Rani freed herself, but plunged the world into chaos to do so. Malenia sleeps forever, waiting for a brother who abandoned her. Radan's soul was stolen and grafted to another's corpse, and the lands between burns, slowly, endlessly. A world caught in permanent twilight between ages, where the old order is broken but no new order can form, where grace still guides tarnished to impossible tasks but offers no reward for completing them, where every quest ends in failure or hollow victory, where every triumph reveals itself as just another form of tragedy. This is what the Demigods' war cost. Not just their own lives, not just their ambitions and dreams and hopes, but the world itself. The very fabric of reality strained to breaking, death itself corrupted, life itself poisoned, hope itself extinguished. The tarnished walks through this ruin, guided by grace, collecting great runes, slaying demigods, and working toward claiming the Elden Ring. But to what end? To repair a system that was fundamentally broken, to restore an order that was built on oppression and lies, to serve gods that have already abandoned everyone, or to burn it all down and hope that something better might grow from the ashes. Chapter 10. Conclusion. The weight of divinity. We have walked through shadow and flame. We have witnessed the rise and fall of demigods, the breaking of an eternal order, the consequences of divine ambition unbound by wisdom or compassion. We have seen children of gods made into weapons, into victims, into monsters, into tragedies that reshape the very world around them. The demigods of Elden Ring are not villains in the simple sense. They are not evil for evil's sake, not cruel without cause, not mad without reason. They are products of a broken system, children raised in a world that told them they were special, divine, destined for greatness, and then abandoned them the moment they stopped being useful. Godwyn, the Golden, beloved and heroic, murdered by forces he never saw coming, corrupted into something grotesque, unable to die properly, trapped forever in spreading decay. His death accomplished nothing but pain, broke nothing but hearts, freed nobody but instead created new forms of suffering. Morgoth and Mog, twin brothers born cursed, one internalizing shame until it destroyed him, the other embracing rebellion only to be manipulated by forces even darker than those he fled. Both died as they lived, defined by a curse they never chose, fighting battles they could never win. Radahn the Star Scourge, mighty warrior who held the stars themselves in place, reduced to a mad beast, eating corpses in a poisoned wasteland, his soul later stolen and grafted to another's body, his will subverted even in death. His strength became his curse, his loyalty became his cage, his heroism became just another tool for others to exploit. Rykard the Blasphemous, who fed himself to a serpent, seeking power to overthrow gods, who became the very tyranny he claimed to oppose, who devoured countless souls in pursuit of a freedom that required consuming everything. His rebellion was just another form of slavery, his blasphemy just another form of worship. Ranni the Witch, who killed herself to be free, who orchestrated the death that broke the world, who offers liberation at the cost of everything warm and certain. Her Age of Stars promises freedom from divine manipulation, but it is the cold freedom of space, distant and dark and utterly alone. Malenia the Undefeated, strongest warrior in the lands between, devoted unto death to a brother who manipulated her love, who sent her to bloom and fall into endless sleep, who abandoned her without a second thought. Her strength could not save her. Her devotion could not protect her. Her undefeated record became meaningless when the only person she fought for betrayed her. Miquella the Kind, who seemed to offer gentleness in a harsh world, who discarded his love to become a god, who manipulated everyone around him, including his own devoted sister, who achieved divinity by becoming something empty and terrible. His kindness was the cruelest trick of all, a mask hiding ambition as ruthless as any tyrant's. Mesmer the Impaler, the forgotten son, the abandoned crusader, still burning and killing and impaling in a shadow realm, still hoping his mother might acknowledge him, still loyal to an order that erased his very existence. His tragedy is perhaps the purest of all, the tragedy of a child who can never accept that his parent simply does not care. And Godric, the grafted, the pathetic end of a once noble line, stealing strength he could not earn, wearing greatness he could not embody, dying as he lived, a fraud desperately trying to be something he fundamentally was not. These are the demigods. These are the fates that divine blood purchases in a world where gods play games with mortal and immortal lives alike, where cosmic entities treat entire civilizations as pieces on boards too vast to comprehend, where even those born to power discover that power without wisdom is just another form of slavery. The lands between did not need more powerful rulers. It needed mercy. It needed compassion. It needed someone to break the cycle, rather than simply claiming the top position in it. It needed someone to recognize that the problem was not who sat on the throne, but that there was a throne at all, that divinity and mortality were separated by a gulf too vast to bridge with good intentions or noble blood. Every demigod fell because they fought within a system that was designed to destroy them. Every curse, every manipulation, every tragedy was baked into the structure of the Golden Order from its inception. Queen Marika built her rule on genocide and lies, sealed away death itself to grant her children immortality, and then shattered everything when she realized the cage she had created. And her children, those blessed or cursed with divine blood, paid the price for her ambitions. They warred for her throne. They claimed her shattered ring. They destroyed each other and the world in pursuit of validation from gods who had stopped watching long ago. This is the weight of divinity. This is the price of divine blood. This is what happens when you tell children they are gods and then abandon them to discover they are merely powerful, merely cursed, merely mortal with extra steps. The demigods of Elden Ring deserved better. They deserved a world that did not demand they be weapons or vessels or symbols. They deserved the chance to simply be, to live without cosmic expectation, to fail without divine punishment, to love without manipulation, to die properly when their time came. But they lived in the lands between, where the very trees were soaked in divine ambition, where grace itself was just another form of control, where even freedom required such terrible prices that liberation became its own form of damnation. So remember them. Remember Godwyn's friendship with dragons. Remember Morgoth's tragic loyalty. Remember Morg's futile rebellion. Remember Radahn's love for his tiny horse. Remember Rykard's futile blasphemy. Remember Ranni's cold determination. Remember Malenia's devotion. Remember Mikella's terrible kindness. Remember Mesmer's forgotten crusade. Remember even Godric's pathetic grasping for greatness. Remember that they were demigods, yes, but they were also just children. Children of gods, certainly, but children nonetheless. Children who deserved better than the fates that found them. Children who should have been more than cautionary tales about the dangers of divine ambition. Remember their tragedy. Learn from their mistakes. And when you claim that Elden Ring, when you repair or remake or reject the order that destroyed them, remember that every system that treats people as pieces, as tools, as vessels for greater purpose, will inevitably create new demigods, new tragedies, new ruins where hope used to grow. The lands between need something different, something better, something that recognizes that divinity without compassion is just tyranny with better aesthetics. That power without wisdom destroys everything it touches, that even gods can be wrong. Whether you can provide that, whether any ending truly breaks the cycle, whether there is any choice that does not simply install a new tyrant in place of the old one, that remains uncertain. But at least now you understand the cost of failure. At least now you know what happens when demigods fight and nobody wins. At least now you can see the ruins of divine ambition and choose, deliberately and knowingly, what world you want to build in its place. The demigods are dead or worse than dead. Their fates are sealed, their tragedies complete, but their story, their warning, their legacy of ruin and pain and futile ambition that endures. Learn from it, honor it, and perhaps, just perhaps, create something better in the ashes they left behind. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the tragic fates of Elden Ring's demigods, please like this video and subscribe for more lore explorations. Share your thoughts in the comments about which demigod story affected you most, and whether you think any of them could have been saved from their terrible fates. Until next time, may grace guide you through whatever darkness lies ahead.